Can context substitute for third-party cookies? Brought to you by industry pioneers of contextual intelligence and journey automation, GumGum and AcuityAds. Please be sure to chat in your questions during the webinar, and we'll address these at the end of the session. I would now like to introduce our moderator, Chief Strategy Officer at AcuityAds, Seraj Bharwani.
Thank you, Lindsay. Hello and welcome. So glad you could join us today. This is Seraj Bharwani, Chief Strategy Officer of AcuityAds, a Canadian publicly owned company that developed Lumen, the first omni-channel journey automation platform in the ad tech industry. I'm your host for the forum today. Our topic for today's discussion is, can context substitute for third-party cookies? Here with me are Ken and Andrey. Welcome, guys. So glad you could join us today.
Thanks for having us here.
So let me do the introduction. Let me do official introductions here, Ken and Andrey. So Ken Weiner is the Chief Technology Officer at GumGum. Ken has advanced the role of context in advertising, utilizing the latest in AI technology. Ken, we would be delighted to hear exactly what you have in the works. Frankly, there is so much GumGum is doing. And Andrey Feldman. He's the Vice President of Products at AcuityAds. Andrey has been championing our CEO's vision for journey automation in partnership with our engineering and the development teams. So Andrey, frankly, the vision you've provided, the leadership you've provided, frankly, is just truly amazing for us for where we are today.
Yes, sir.
Let me set the stage up a little bit, Ken and Andrey, and then we can roll with the discussion, okay? So, you know, context in an era of advertising that we are about to enter, which is a privacy-first era, context is taking on a whole new significance, although, frankly, context was important from the early days of advertising. Ken and Andrey, both of you know, right? You've been in advertising long enough, right? It's been 70 years. Look at this, Jaguar in the Bond films, frankly, that was one of the, prime contexts that we know of. There is Coke right there in American Idol and others. Brands have always sought context in all of the creative ways possible, right, over the years. Then there are products that are placed in context, juxtaposed to complementarity, right? So there is KitchenAid with the big chefs, in the kitchens, making stuff, right? There is a milk and its association with Oreos. And then there is Starbucks and Spotify. And you can just keep going on and on, right? Again, context. It's a quick reminder. It's a memory jogger is really how brands really want to be juxtaposed, right? In all the right places. And then when you enter online, of course, which is where we are in the discussion that's relevant, online ads, where we started years ago, which was the mid-90s, frankly, that was the first emergence of the commercial internet. What we had was, automotive ads in automotive endemic sites. That was context. And it was fabulous, worked really well until digital advertising became just amazingly popular, and the demand for reach, frequency, and scale just could not be accommodated just doing with endemics, right? And so what happened? That was the emergence of audience buying, right? So then we go into audience buying. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means that we now had the power of tracking. We had the cookies. We could actually track history. We knew where people had been, which publisher sites they've been, which content they were actually spending their time on, and so forth. And now we could get the reach and frequency, which was orders of magnitude bigger than that. That's not to say that context wasn't important. It's just that we were beginning to rely so much more on behavior, right? Well, that meant we took it even further. All that meant was we could now follow the journey, the whole purchase journey from the beginning all the way to the end, right? And I think that's the stuff that, Andrey will be talking about even further, because that's what Lumen brings to the table. So the ability to know something about the consumer, where they are in their decision-making process, really makes things so much more relevant. And the guidance you provide is all so tightly connected with where the consumer is at any point in time, right? Well, yes. But then, as we all become highly sensitive to the concerns about consumer privacy, all of a sudden, we now need to begin to think different thoughts, right? And the different thoughts are, well, how is that future going to evolve when we start doing that? So whether it's devices, whether it's regulation, or any combination of those things, we now need to be obviously extremely sensitive. As consumers, we of course are too. We want advertisers to treat us with care. They should treat our data with care. All of that stuff is becoming very important, right? Now, the disappearance of cookies, what is that going to do? There's a lot of nervousness and anxiety. There's so much noise in the marketplace. It limits the ability to behaviorally target audiences. Yes, that is true. But is that the end of the world? Well, we'll find out. It's also challenging advertisers' ability to achieve scale. So then the real question is, advertisers love context. We like context. We want advertising to see within the context in which we are mentally. So then how are we going to use context and still have the ability to achieve scale as we enter the privacy first era? I could not think of a better combination of the people we have today in Ken and Andrey to be able to address this issue and answer that question for us. Guys, let's jump right in. You with me?
Yep.
All righty. Ken, let's start with you. So you've put some amazing years into the development and evolving context as part of advertising. Tell us what's new. What is different? How far have we come? And where have you pushed the AI and the algos to really achieve where we are today?
Sure. And Seraj, thanks for having me here today. If you look back, you even showed in the beginning of your talk here how long contextual targeting has been something, right? It's even before digital, people were using contextual targeting. But as we came into the digital era, the complexity and the sophistication of algorithms has increased over time, and the techniques people used. Originally, people would use site level metadata to kind of understand what a website was or a domain was about. And then gradually things became a little more sophisticated, and people would look at a page URL. Some companies have contextual products built just around looking in the keywords found in a URL. Then eventually it went further, and we started looking at the content of the page or the video where somebody's engaging. And people have started to analyze the text on the page and surfaced important keywords and things like that. But only more recently has technology gotten to the point where we can do what we call content level understanding of the environment, which is where you combine all possible signals in a digital environment to understand what's going on, including text, including images. In a video world, looking at video frames and the audio transcriptions and text on screen and everything that you can find. Algorithms now have the ability to do that. And specifically within technology, an area that we focus on because it has such great capabilities is something called neural networks or deep learning. And this kind of technology can make predictions, I would say, more like a human would. Like when you talk about neural networks, the neurons in those algorithms are analogous to the neurons in a person's brain, right? Because they get to learn over time by getting exposed to more and more digital content and understanding the nuances and sophistication that occurs within that content. It's not structured data like a spreadsheet that we're looking at. It's text and pixels in an image, right? Very complicated stuff that only a brain can understand. And so, that's what we've really been focusing on over the years, is building up technology that can work that way. And in fact, we're really excited because we're going to be one of the first companies to get an MRC accreditation for this thing called content level contextual analysis. And
oh my God, this is fabulous. This is fabulous. MRC is very hard to do. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you guys. I'll tell you, Ken, the piece that I'm picking up on what you just said, right? Most importantly is, technology and algorithms. There's so much suspicion in the market now, right? Now that science fiction has become real, right? In the way you described it. this is like, what's the algorithm really going to do? Does the algorithm really understand me? Like, is it going to think from a human's perspective, right? And I think that's what you're pointing out to, because eventually context is in the eyes of the consumer, right? It's like, if I as a consumer can believe that, yes, this is contextually relevant, and that's what the algo is doing, that's when you have achieved the sort of the miracle that you are going after, right?
Yeah, that's right, Seraj.
And we will want to do the real test. So let's talk about that, right? A little bit further. So let's talk Verity for a second, right? That's really the product now, right? So tell us what Verity in particular does and how does it serve? Because essentially you are serving both sides of the house, right? Because if you're looking at tons of content from publisher sites, you're dealing with both sides of the house, the publisher and the advertiser, right?
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, Verity is the name for our contextual and brand suitability technology. You know, it's something we've been cultivating at GumGum for over 10 years now. And we're finally starting to make it available outside of the GumGum exchange platform, but for other partners such as yourselves to really leverage, ultimately for advertisers, right? Because advertisers are the main customers of contextual technology that can use it for a privacy safe way to target campaigns or stay out of environments that they don't want. But you know, our product is available as an API enabled service, so we can work with publishers who want to integrate it into their content management platforms to create PMPs for their sales teams, as well as DSPs such as yourself to make it available in a pre-bid scenario so people can just easily check a box and attach this type of targeting to their campaigns.
Perfect. That's really, really, really good. Anything else you want to add specific to the way the Verity actually works? Because I know there are some supporting slides that you had provided. It might be helpful to just add any elaboration on this.
Yeah. In fact, the slide that you're showing is something that we use to talk about this concept of training an algorithm to predict things more like a human. An analogy that I like to give is with spam detection for email, where let's say you wanted to detect spam in an email system, like every email provider must do, right? They don't just ask you, pick the keywords that you want to block, right? To detect what spam is. Otherwise, imagine how messy that would be. Like you pick a single keyword like refinance because you got that in a spam email. And then all of a sudden, all your legitimate conversations about refinancing get blocked, right? Or something else. So what they ask you to do instead is they say, just tell us if the email is spam. They don't ask you why. You just say mark it as spam. And that's essentially training data for that algorithm, right? To go ahead and learn over time from thousands of examples, thousands of people who mark something as spam, what is actually spam and what is actually not. And if you think about it, you can tell as a human very quickly, you make a quick judgment about it, but you don't know the complexities of the reasoning behind the judgment that you made, right? And this same thing is applied to the internet as a whole in digital content. People can judge the content quickly and make an assessment, but the rules are not just based on keywords. It could be based on colors, images, length of text, loudness of the volume of a video. I mean, so many different things can factor into it. And only a neural network type or a supervised machine learning type of algorithm can pick up on those nuances after being trained on data. And so that's why what we like to show here is that there's this process where humans look at data, they make the judgments, they train the algorithm, and then as a result, the algorithm can make human-like predictions when it sees new content.
This is fantastic. This is fabulous. So glad you actually provided this context, because it's so important for us to trust what the computer and the algorithm is doing, right? Which is that, so much of it is transparency, which is so hard to get in general. Ken, hang on there for a second, because I do have a lot more questions for you. I'm going to go on to Andrey for a second, okay?
Sure.
So Andrey, you've been leading this whole effort, the Lumen effort, right? And the whole vision going forward for Acuity. There may be people in our audience who would not necessarily know about it because you launched this platform, frankly, just last October, right? And so the reception might be very good, but it's still, we are getting new audiences every single time we do a forum like this. Would you mind elaborating on what is Lumen and what does it accomplish for the advertisers and the consumers?
Absolutely, Seraj. And once again, thank you for having me here. And Ken, thanks so much for all this background. That was phenomenal. Actually, some of the stuff that you've covered here, I don't think I've heard about this before, man. We should talk more often. But about Lumen specifically, and Seraj, I couldn't be more excited to talk about Lumen. It's been, all over the media over the last 6 months, and we've been taking the industry by storm. So we've launched last fall. The reception so far have been absolutely phenomenal. And the one thing that I'd like to say about Lumen is, and Tal says it way better than I do, but we really bridge the gap between how marketers think and how media is executed. It's first of its kind platform that really allows marketers in a very visual way to build sequential messaging and across all stages of the funnel and connect it. And I think that is the key thing. Tools out there today, when you talk line items and regular campaigns, it's all disjointed, it's all black box, you don't get to see anything. With Lumen, we truly open things up. From awareness all the way to conversion, you really get to see what is working. And all is being done in a very visual, intuitive, easy to use, drag and drop way. So think about a consumer journey across all your stages of the funnel, connected in a matter of seconds, minutes, all providing very clear interpretation and unparalleled insights. I think one thing that I really like about Lumen, and I can't stress enough, is really the level of intelligence that our marketers can now get by building a journey this way. So it's not about line items, it's not about 50 or 100 of them and multiple campaigns. It's a single journey where you can see exactly how consumers flow through each stage of the funnel, where they get stuck and how they get stuck and how you can unstuck them, for lack of better words.
Right. No, this is very helpful. I think the visual depiction that you have on the screen clearly, obviously depicts that in a way that is far more intuitive than we've ever seen, frankly, within a programmatic or a DSP environment, right? Yeah, no, that's fabulous. Now connect the dots for us. Why context? How does context fit into this whole new paradigm of omni-channel journey automation and management?
So as you know, there is this, well, it's no longer an elephant in a room, but it is one of those kind of things that are top of mind on every marketer. It's, well, how is this going to work when cookies are going away, right? We're all, targeting audiences, we're buying audiences, we can craft messages, we can sequence, we can control frequency, we can control reach. Cookies are going to go away, what's going to happen? And this is where I think context is truly going to play a pivotal role and much growing role. Seraj, I really like this slide that I have here and the analogy and the metaphor of contextual being really at the base of the pyramid of this multifaceted approach to how we're going to deal with cookies going away. And I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all solution. Taking a holistic and pragmatic approach is going to be critical for all of us. Either it's on the advertiser side or on the publisher side. And I think this pyramid really depicts it well. So as you can see, we place contextual all the way at the base. It is the base of the pyramid. It is the base of reaching out to the right audiences in the right context. It will provide us the widest possible reach. But again, precision is not going to be the best. As we go upwards in the pyramid, we continue to increase precision and we can target up to a point of specific individuals, but our scale starts really narrowing. So when you think about probabilistic graphs, it's, all of those graphs that are based on signals like the user agent and IP address and, multitude of other potential signals that some of them may go away and they will provide us a little bit more accuracy in terms of who we're targeting and a little bit more control over frequency. So we go upward, we talk about deterministic identifiers. Everyone here in the audience, I'm sure, have heard about, the Trade Desk Unified ID Initiative and LiveRamp's Identity Link. And there is Europe ID and many, many others that are out there. And those will be based on email addresses and they will provide a more precise targeting as well. But again, much, much less scale. The majority of traffic today is still unauthenticated. And until that whole section reaches scale, again, contextual and probabilistic identifiers are going to play a pivotal role. And then, of course, first-party data is the most accurate, precise data that you can get in terms of targeting and making sure we really know who we're talking to and get as much information possible about them. But the scale is narrower. So what I'd like to say, you know, kind of to sum it all up, contextual is going to play a critical role going forward with cookies going away as the base of the pyramid. And, you know, we're one of the only DSPs that have added a contextual partner, a new contextual partner in the last little while. And we've done a lot of work with Ken and his team to make sure that, you know, that solution will get us the best precision possible that we can get.
I can see that. I can totally see that. And I'm sure our audience understands too as to why this partnership really makes so much sense. And the timing is just so right in the way you described it, Andrey. And you're absolutely right. I think the pyramid construct really explains, as a simple example, you notice so many advertisers and the publications are really talking about the fact that now we need to all have first-party data. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, most people's CRM databases actually are no more than 5 or 10% of the total audience market that they would want to reach. The prospecting is going to be still an integral component, right?
Absolutely.
And so that remains an open horizon in terms of where we actually go and how we expand from there, right? Andrey, hang in there. I want to go back to Ken for a second. So Ken, given that context is going to play such a prominent role, the way Andrey described it, really as a foundational element, right? You're essentially going in a path where our audience is always going to be kind of, in some respects, questioning, right? In the sense that, does context really work that well? Like, how does it? And how does it work relative to how used to we were to behavior targeting and all the historical tracking and stuff that we were able to do? Have you done any investigations where, you know, you have amazing conviction for sure? It has to be based on something that you've done. So any research you can point to that gives our audience evidence that, you know what, any comparisons, any research you have done on a side-by-side would actually be extremely helpful.
Sure, Seraj. We have done some research, in fact, but before I tell you about it, I just want to point out that, you know, there are really two different ways of thinking about targeting, right? Behavioral and contextual. Mm-hmm. You know, audience targeting is really just based on what have people done in the past. You know, if you follow them around, what websites they go to, what do they interact with, then you try to make some type of assessment of who that person is, and then you look for that type of person wherever they are, right, across the internet. Sometimes it leads to not such a great experience for a consumer because they may be doing something in the moment and they're being targeted for something that has nothing to do with what they're doing, but it's just based on something they did way in the past, right? Yes. And that could have big troubles. Like if you're shopping for a gift for somebody having a baby shower, right? It doesn't mean you're an expectant mother and you should be targeted forever with baby toys, right? Contextual, on the other hand, is really all focused about someone's current mindset. What are they doing in the moment? What are they interacting with and thinking about? And so when you think about running a campaign when you're thinking audience versus contextual, you really can think differently and try to target based on behavior, current behavior, not past behavior when you're setting up a contextual campaign. But I know that people are looking for an answer. Just how do you compare contextual to audience if you had to like choose between the two? And going back to your question, we have done some research to sort of understand how you can meet certain objectives with contextual versus behavioral targeting. And one of the things we did is we ran a study with Dentsu. It was a third-party study where we had 4 leading brands from different categories: tech and beauty and home improvement and a direct-to-consumer brand. And one of the things we looked at was the cost efficiency of reaching an in-demo audience through contextual tactics versus audience tactics. So what you'll find is that if you're actually trying to find a demographic, contextual can approximate that by trying to see what kind of environment someone's engaging with that might be that type of demographic. And what you see, because contextual targeting tends to be cheaper on a CPM basis than audience targeting, is you can actually get an overall cost efficiency, maybe a little bit less accuracy in hitting a demo, but more cost efficiency with a contextual strategy. And we saw that between 40 and 50% lower CPCs and cost per viewable impressions could be attained through a contextual targeting strategy. The other thing we did in this study, which is interesting, is we had we took a record of all the pages that a contextual campaign ran on, and we had a human look at those pages, something that people don't often do, right? We had someone look at these pages and say, was this page actually about what the targeting parameters were meant to target? And the goal here was to kind of look at accuracy of the contextual provider. And we did this with Verity, but we also did it with some of the other leading contextual vendors that are found on the market. And we found our solution, for a lot of the reasons I gave you earlier, for this human-like understanding, was a lot more accurate, almost 2 times more accurate than other contextual vendors. So we were really happy with the results from that.
No, I'm so glad you actually said that, Ken. So many vendors have been claiming they have the contextual solution, as though everybody's got this garden variety in-house solution of their own and so forth. And the more and more I see it, it requires amazing amount of specialization for the type of technology that you guys have had to build and make the investments. It's a very different thing altogether, right? And so I'm not surprised with the results that you're actually showing here. Andrey, now that we have a little bit of qualification and characterization of what context is and what it can do, what do you see? Because frankly, if I was in GumGum's shape and I was in Ken's shoes right now, I would be saying, who are my lead users? And what are they seeing as the unmet needs from their perspective, from what the clients are looking for, what kinds of things they would need in the coming 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and so forth. What would you say as the needs out there?
Great question, Seraj. And, the laundry list is long, right? If you open the Pandora box with customers and you ask them what they would want, there is a lot of things they will voice, and it's amazing feedback. But really 3 things stood out for me by, having conversations and talking to customers and getting that input. It's all about precision. That's kind of the first thing that comes to mind. It's, how can contextual become more precise? Because it's very broad, as we have seen. It's a very wide range. How can it get more precise? The second area that a lot of customers have been talking about is in-stream video. Today in contextual, we're good at recognizing context on pages. We're good at recognizing perhaps, pre-roll, etc. But in-stream, within the frame, we're not good at it. And that's what a lot of customers are asking. It's like, how can we make sure that when we're advertising in context, or when we put something in context within a video, we know that, that's how it's working. The third area that is coming up, and I didn't want to bring it up. I'm not sure if there is ever going to be a solution for that. I'd love to hear what Ken is thinking, but it's, contextual doesn't solve for the frequency problem, right? It's a completely different beast and completely different area in how we look at it. So while it can help us, target more precisely in some cases, it can help us get the person in the right context and, avoid this fatigue of ads, right? That can be established through various types of limits and conditions. We're still not necessarily solving for frequency. So those are the 3 main ones. It's precision, in-stream video, and frequency. I'd love to hear what Ken has to say.
Understand. I think that's a very good point, Ken. Let's just settle the record on frequency. Ken, is context really designed to solve that problem?
No, it's not really designed to solve that problem. I wish I had some magic that could somehow tie contextual to this identity of a user, but that's the whole point of contextual. It's privacy safe. It's not tied to an identity of a user at all, really. Exactly. And so there's no way to use contextual to try to understand the amount of times somebody's seeing an ad as they go across the internet. The best that you could do is probably frequency cap the amount of ads that show on a particular piece of content, like a particular web page or a video.
Understood. Okay, so Ken, then let's take it to the next level. As you look out on the horizon, talk about where are you taking context next? I mean, Andrey pointed out video and streaming and all of this stuff. Is that all just pipe dream, or is this real?
No, I mean, as Andrey was talking about video, I was wanting to jump in right there because that's one of the areas that our team's very excited about. We've been working on video for quite a while now. We actually have a history of being experts in computer vision and sort of tying that into video, along with all the other signals in video, like the audio transcription any metadata you can grab, doing OCR on text that's on the video frame. We like to take all those signals that we can get and create a contextual, analysis about the whole video itself. But what's even super exciting is we're bringing that, actually into the hands of people now. And for a long time, this was not available. I don't know if most people realize it, but because of the way the R2B mechanics work, video URLs don't flow through the bid stream, right? And so that's one of the reasons that contextual was really never made possible in a DSP or in a pre-bid scenario, is because there's no access to the video for anybody to analyze, right? It sits with the publisher. But what's happening now is we're getting connections into publishers' content management systems where we can start to analyze the video and use the technologies that I've been describing, and start to float up that information through the bid stream all the way up to a DSP for targeting. So we've been working on that and are excited to work with Andrey as well to make this available as a next step in our partnership into the platform.
That's really fascinating, Ken. That's absolutely fascinating. I'm so delighted to hear. Andrey, so here is now your opportunity for a punchline. And I'd like you to summarize for our audience. So what are the top few things that an advertiser gets now with GumGum fully embedded with the Lumen platform?
It's a big one, Seraj. They get so much. Let me say that first and foremost, I think they'll be better prepared for cookies going away.
That's correct.
That's to me, that's one of the most important and one of the key aspects.
That's a big relief. That's a big relief for most of our advertisers. You know that.
It's not going to solve the entire problem, but they're definitely going to be better prepared as an option and as an additional way to target and achieve the results that they want to achieve and the metrics that are so important to our customers and advertisers. I think the second biggest benefit is going to be around inventory access. What we've done and through Scan and Contextual, and given the advancements in technology we've seen and what Ken has talked about during this session, we've seen much more precise classification of results coming through contextual vendors, and specifically GumGum Verity. And in that case, it opens up access to much more inventory. So, and it doesn't just apply to contextual purely, but also in brand safe scenarios and other type of scenarios. And that would lead to both better performance, lower CPM, and lower costs. So those are going to be kind of the two key things that I would say, our customers can take away and run this.
It's so interesting, it's rare, Ken, as you know, that any particular technology or approach would actually strike high on so many different fronts with advertiser KPIs and so forth. And this is one of those partnerships which I think can bring some amazing benefits, right? And Andrey, thank you for doing that. At this point, what we would like to do is, as you can imagine, I'm really excited. I'm curious. I want to know a lot more from you guys, but I think it's a good idea to give our audience a little bit of an opportunity to also ask you a few questions. So Lindsay, if you are there, would you please take a look at some of the questions that have been flowing in so that Ken and Andrey can actually address some of the questions that are coming from the audience, because I do see some of the stuff coming through the chats.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a really great one here. So it says, when will InVideo and in-stream context be available for audience targeting? And is there a release date?
Ken.
Sounds like it's for me.
I was not going to put you on the spot on that one, but it has to be.
I'm not sure exactly. They may be referring to a particular ad product that we've been cultivating, which is called InVideo, which is a kind of an overlay ad experience that shows up at the bottom section of a video, like the editorial video, not within an ad break, but while you're actually watching the show, so you're not interrupted as a user. And that is something that we're launching pilots for in the GumGum platform. And I'm actually talking to Andrey about seeing if we can get that into the AcuityAds platform as well. But one thing special about that with respect to contextual is this is also something I didn't talk about yet, is we're kind of embarking on a journey to understand not only the video as a whole, which some others have started to do, but more like what's happening within the video at different parts of the video, right? Because if let's say you're concerned about brand safety and there's I don't know, maybe there's a scene with a lot of violent shooting right at the 1 hour mark of a movie. Well, you may still want to place an ad at the 30-minute mark because it's a relatively safe area of the video, right? So it's not enough to just have the overall video analysis, but really getting down to like frame by frame what's going on is going to be necessary. And I think it's particularly supportive of this product that was asked about, which is when an ad shows as an overlay on the video while it's being played. We need to have that contextual understanding.
Yeah. Are you looking at the time horizon of some of these things happening later this year, or are we talking early next year?
Yeah, no, we're looking, this is all later this year. So
okay.
Stay tuned. We're very excited about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very nice. That's very nice. Okay, Lindsay, what's next?
Here's another great one. Some DSPs are offering their own in-house solutions for contextual advertising. Do advertisers gain any advantage when GumGum comes integrated with Lumen?
Andrey, this sounds more like something for you.
Wow, what a question. So in one answer, I would say absolutely they would. And a longer question or a longer answer would be, look, we used to have our own contextual solution. And there is no way how an organization that is focused on specific areas can compete with decades of experience that someone like GumGum has have gathered and have established in the industry. When you think about this, organizations like GumGum and his team, Ken and his team, are able to crawl and classify billions and billions of sites at a tremendous cost. And that is just not going to be scalable for any DSP to try on their own. So I would say absolutely there are advantages both in terms of costs, in terms of efficacy, accuracy, and intelligence, and just in general, the level of intelligence and the level of knowledge that went into building something like that to begin with.
Ken, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important if you're using contextual, whether it's us or somebody else, is to ask the right questions and look a little bit further into what you're actually using. Because, a signal can be in the bid stream, but who knows where it came from and who knows what the quality of it is. Like in some cases, it's a DSP's homegrown technology, right? But in some other cases, it could be something passed through from a publisher or, where the origin of that signal is not really understood, right? So I just think it's important to, whatever you use, whether it's our technology, a DSP technology, you ask the questions on how does it work? Where did it come from? What's the technology behind it? How does it compare to others? Kind of like the study that we did to show that, you can get superior performance out of making the right decision in which vendor you're choosing.
Lindsay, anything else?
Yeah, there's another one here. It says, is it possible to know the size and reach of the contextual segments?
You following that, Ken, in terms of what that question is asking? It's the way we normally ask questions in the media planning process, as you know, right? When this is a normal question a client would ask. Okay, these are my segments, and I want to understand how large a size of the segment can you actually provide the reach for me for, So if I'm looking for, whatever XYZ single cell, cancer patients or whatever it is the size through your access point, 500,000 or 2 million or 3 million, whatever. So you get the idea. So that's really the question. I don't know how you want to approach that.
Yeah, I mean, GumGum is able to kind of give information to a client about the amount of content that might match a contextual segment. But the question really brings into play the amount of volume for each, let's say, web page or video that's being consumed, which is something that's more, that data sits more on Andrey's side in the Illumin platform in terms of how much volume is coming through. So now I think I'll punt that question for that portion of it over to Andrey in terms of understanding traffic, right?
You got it. Go ahead, Andrey, if you want to add something to that.
No, I have nothing to add to what Ken has already said. I think his answer was spot on, and yeah, nothing to add there.
Yeah, I am imagining this. I mean, this is a very strong, good, thoughtful question, by the way, because it goes to the heart of the way media planning is done, as I mentioned earlier. And I think, Andrey, the answer lies somewhere in your data pyramid that you were showing earlier, which is when you look at the amount of traffic available through context, the way Ken is talking about it, you are adding to it overlays of other data sets to really match and get a better feel for like what is the overall size of that audience within context that you are able to reach, right? Which is that's a very natural question that will actually pop up often. So whoever asked that question is actually in the media planning and understands exactly how you go there. So I think it's an interesting exercise. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add, so if we are going there are forecasting and planning tools, right?
Yes.
Where we could estimate based on past traffic and past experience what the traffic is going to be in a probabilistic manner, and what is the reach that we're going to have, especially when it's coupled with other type of constraints. But in the end, we can't think of contextual segments or contextual targeting as the only factor for forecasting.
Absolutely.
Typically, it is combined with other type of constraints, and this is where this type of estimation can get difficult. But what we do know is that the widest or the widest approach that we're going to get, or the widest coverage that we're going to get, is going to be through contextual, with any other additional signals, if layered upon that, are going to narrow it down. Exactly. Absolutely. Like in that pyramid, right? Your reach is going to become smaller and smaller.
Absolutely. And you're adding a lot more precision the way Ken described it from the context perspective. We all want it. Advertisers want it. That's just very clear. And to the extent that you can do that with the right scale, I think it makes a lot of difference. Lindsay, anything else?
Yes, we do have another one here. It says, can Lumen help advertisers through each stage using contextual?
Andrey, this is yours.
Can you repeat that question again, Lindsay?
Sure. It says, can Lumen help advertisers through each stage using contextual advertising?
Absolutely. And in each stage, the impact is going to be different. So of course, when we're thinking about contextual targeting in a wide net, in awareness is probably going to be, one of the bigger impacts, but it's not to say that it shouldn't be used in engagement or in conversion. Specifically, what we have seen is a lot of success with very clear contextual targeting in the conversion stage as well, where we're able to target specific intents and specific contexts and ensure that right when the individual or when the consumer is in a context of performing a specific task, like for example, evaluating mattresses, right? They will, that's the right time to show a specific ad for them with a call to action to convert. So we've seen it working across all stages. How it's going to be used and what contextual segments are going to be picked is going to be key. And I think this is where, some knowledge and experience from the campaign managers comes to mind, or also from recommendations and suggestions that we can provide within our platform for less experienced campaign managers.
Yes. Lindsay, we have a chance for one more question, and then I need to really recap this.
Okay, perfect. So the next one we have are there any good resources to stay up to speed on contextual targeting?
Ken,
I can take that one, because we do have a resource that we've been maintaining. It's called Contextual Insider. You can go to, I think it's gumgum.com/contextual-insider, or just Google Contextual Insider. But we put out a lot of thought pieces on contextual and its evolution, and also some other things just related to identity and cookies going away.
That's it can actually, I use that particular resource that you pointed to. There are some amazingly good articles. As a matter of fact, there's lots of good videos there too that you guys have actually put in that whole environment. The resource is fascinating. I personally highly recommend that our audience actually check that out. It's fascinating. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Lindsay, I'm going to move on to the recaps. Thank you, guys. There was some amazingly good questions and very insightful answers as well. let's talk about what's next here, right? So summary, we talk about journey automation the way Andrey actually described it. There are three very distinct stages in the way we manage consumer journey through Lumen, right? There is the canvas that Andrey was talking about, very intuitive. You can lay it out by stages and so forth. Gives you control in terms of your messaging, in terms of your creative, and how you can really manipulate that given the value of the consumer as they move down the journey. And then attribution. Everybody wants attribution. They all want to know what's the ultimate impact, what was the KPIs that were achieved and so forth. And as Andrey just described it, there can't be a journey without context. It's all in the context of where the consumer is. And I think this is really where the marriage of the two is just perfect. It just makes so much sense to do it and do it in a very privacy safe way to do that. To answer the question that this particular forum and its topic was titled as, is context going to be the singular solution to the cookies disappearing? Probably not. It is one of a whole variety of things we are going to have to do, which is the entire stack of data that Andrey pointed out to us, the pyramid. These are all these different things that collaboratively working together will make a huge difference and take us into the new era of privacy protected advertising that we all want to see happen, right? Okay, on that topic, what is next? So we've been doing a lot of education, and so has GumGum on their own. On our side, in terms of the whole certification program for journey automation that we started with IAB in partnership through the IAB Brand Academy, we did our first forum a couple months ago, and our next forum is actually coming up in July, on the 22nd of July. And this one is much more focused on measurement and attribution. So we hope that you are actually able to join in, and it will be fascinating for us to have you again. Frankly, Ken and Andrey, I cannot thank you enough for the amount of insights and all of the information that you've actually shared with our audience. I learned a lot, and I'm sure that our audience will also really be able to benefit from it and be able to use it in practice. I also want to thank Lindsay, Jason, Jackson, Shannon, Yao, and the team that actually put all the content together. Guys, without you, we would not have been able to pull this off. And Sam, again, who actually helped with coordinating on both sides of the house as well. Thank you so much. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. Have a pleasant day.